Makes me want one.
I'm going to intro with that. Show that knife real quick.
Do it.
Let me unclip from the mothership. There's Doodle as I kick off this 22 rifle tabletop. Oops, let me zoom out here. Here we go. Almar Eagle. What's the steel on that one? ZDP 189, I think, right?
Yep.
You're a knife guy, aren't you?
Yeah. I love them. Knives, watches, I like all that.
How about your brother?
Not so much.
Not so much.
More of a CSGO type of guy.
Not so much. Which of these two guns would you prefer in your collection to hand down to your kids?
1022.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
It is. This is a classic.
It's a great gun. The Marlin's freaking sweet too, but there's something about the 1022, the mags in it.
You can modify it in so many different ways.
This is
well,
mine.
look at mine.
That's the one.
Oh,
You got
that's
me
right.
When I was what, like 4 or 5 or something.
That's right. This is Doodle's gun. Here's a picture of him when he got it. It's cool looking.
Good. I thought you didn't like
Eagle
it for some
made that
reason.
one. I don't even think you can get that heat shield anymore. Maybe you can, but it just looks cool.
I thought this was like an old school Walmart stock too that they used to sell it with.
We'll
It
get
was
to
like
talking about this one too, trust us.
That one's sweet.
Well, I just like the looks. And then I had the barrel bead blasted a while back. I mentioned this in my 2008 review. We called this to the Everyman's rifle, the Everyman's 22, the Ruger 1022. Just love it. This is a special edition Walmart only version that I think we got in North Dakota. No, maybe it was Washington when you were little.
I think it was early Washington.
Yeah. You love that gun, don't you?
It's awesome.
Yeah. Have you shot? You haven't shot this one though, have you?
I have.
The Model 60?
Yeah. I like it.
I think these are one of the all-time two great semi-auto 22s. There's a couple others, definitely, but these are the ones that have probably sold the most. Perennial bestsellers. The question is, how does a Model 60 stack up with all the competition it has nowadays? Not just a 1022. Like I mentioned earlier, so many great options, some of which come from Marlin. I've reviewed the 795, I think, the Papoose, kind of, and the XT22, the bolt action Marlins. All of them, which totally I love. They're Hall of Famers here in TMP. I suspect it's holding its own, even with the newer generation. Even though it's not T-word. You know what I'm saying? Tactical. The 1022 you can make very tactical, right? You can put on a Troy T22 chassis, Archangel, all types of different stocks and configurations. Bullpup stocks out for the 1022, and you can really tweak it. This one is pretty much locked into a traditional configuration, which, to be honest with me, is totally okay, because I'm a big traditional gun fan. I've said that consistently over all these years here in TMP. I don't mind it. I like a traditional stock that looks like this. And let's start off with looking at how beautiful this brown laminated Marlin 60 stock is. Look at this. And I can't, I wish I could, but I don't really remember where we got this. I think it was a special order through one of the gun distributors. I saw that they had a laminated version. I paid extra to get it for the tabletop review and for fondling. I just love it. All types of variations of Model 60s through the years. The gun's been made since 1960. It's been around a long time. It really doesn't need that much of an introduction. I'm not really giving it one, because you guys know about it. Anybody who's a shooter should know what a Marlin Model 60 22 is. I call this, again, the everyman's rifle. I'm going to call this the working man's rifle. Here's why. I go way back with this gun, believe it or not. Even though I haven't reviewed it to this point, I don't know if I've even mentioned the Model 60. I think I have. But I haven't given it a dedicated tabletop like I'm doing now. When I grew up as a teenager in Alabama, what we would do, Sonny and my best friend Sonny and I, we would go out into the swamps. Well, sometimes the swamps, but definitely the woods of northern Alabama, and we would go hunting. Not for fun, but for sustenance, because we didn't have a lot of money back then. He didn't have a lot of money, I didn't have a lot of money, and so we just made do and did the best we could. And we would go shoot squirrels, bring them back to his double-wide trailer, and we would cook them up and eat them. Seriously. And that's my Alabama existence. Along with catfishing, setting trot lines, eating turtles too. By the way, none of that's made up. I really live that way. We didn't have a ton of money, and so I guess you could term us kind of poor back then. And this was Sonny's rifle of choice, because he didn't have a lot of money when he bought it. Now, my dad gave me, at the age of 10, if memory serves, my first Ruger 1022. You've seen it on camera. This is not it, this particular gun. And that's a gun I had. So I would hunt with my 1022. Sonny would hunt with his Model 60. And we had a continuing feud against each other. None of this is made up. About which gun was the coolest. Which gun was the most accurate. Which gun was the best. Yes, even back then, I was very interested in systems and systems capabilities. And he always bragged about his Model 60. Now, incidentally, he had the earlier version, which I'm kind of sad they don't make. It had an 18-round capacity. It had a longer barrel, too. This one is a 14+1. It is a 19-inch barrel. But Sonny's, as were most of those guns in the 1980s, were, again, the higher capacity, longer barrel version. Some of which a limited run had last shot hold open. I think those are commanding top prices, by the way. They reduced that magazine capacity to accommodate legalities in certain states. And so the rest of us who live in free states kind of got hosed in the process. Now, for what the gun is intended to do, be a plinker, we're talking POU here, by the way, be a small game hunter, be a marksmanship recreational rifle, 14+1 is adequate. It's okay, but I'll always take more rounds, as long as it doesn't ruin SAWC. You can see, though, this 19-inch barreled Model 60 is even smaller and even more portable than that previous version. And in that respect, I kind of like it. The weight on it, naked, without the scope, without rings, 5.5 pounds, thereabout. About the same weight as the Ruger 1022 there on the top. And by the way, you know why I think these guns, the barometer I used to say that these guns are still holding their own and selling well? Remember I said this is the Walmart only version, and it was a flash in time. There's been all kinds of variations of 1022s. And the same can be said for the Model 60s. But this gun is still available, or it has been available in Walmart anytime I've checked in a Walmart that sells guns. Not all do, depending on their locality. This gun's still available. That shows that it has mass appeal and it's selling well. Otherwise, they're going to get rid of it. It's a good barometer. So go in a Walmart. I know some hate, some love Walmart. I feel you. You know Mrs. Nutnfancy's take on Walmart if you're a double owl, right? She freaking hates it. But one thing can be said is they do a great service to the firearms community by providing guns for sale to Americans and ammunition to Americans in a mass discounter fashion. And that is a good thing. Don't say it isn't. It's a good thing that you can walk into a Walmart and buy a Marlin Model 60. We were discussing philosophy of use slightly, though. And I don't go too much into it. It's basically as all the other 22 rifles we talked about. And I've already mentioned it. You might add in collectible, because there have been a lot of variations, and they are continuing in all types and fashions from different sources. For instance, this is a brown laminated wood stock, like I said. You can also get the Marlin Model 60 in a black fiberglass stock, a camouflaged hardwood stock. I'm not sure what wood they're using for that, maybe birch or something. I just don't know. If you're lucky enough to find the laminated stock like this, the brown, very good. I know the stainless steel laminate, it's a black laminate stock. Here's a photograph. Oh, that's a good looking gun. It might be my favorite Model 60 because it is stainless steel, impervious to the weather. If you're going to take it into a marine environment like a boat rifle, fishing rifle, whatever, might be the better choice. And then I recommend, if you get that stainless steel Model 60, you do what I did here, bead blast that barrel, and then you get that beautiful dull gray appearance. Isn't that cool looking? I just love it. And it didn't cost that much either. I didn't do this bead blasting. I had another shop do it. It wasn't even a gun shop. It was someone who did bead blast. And I was like, hey, can you do this barrel for me? He's like, yeah. Paid him a few bucks. Did it. Model 60, philosophy of use. That's all I'll say. I probably wouldn't put it in the realm of self-defense gun, but maybe in a future video you may see a Model 60 show up somewhere. We may talk about it in that context. Why? Because, and getting back to the name, it is a working man's rifle. Coming back to my own personal poorness back in the 80s, it's a working man's rifle. For people who don't have a lot of money, they want a quality gun that will shoot straight and shoot forever. Marlin Model 60. It's been that way for decades. Now, some guys will make the case, well, you know, Ruger 10/22's not that much more money, so much more versatile. I'll give you all of that. I concede those points. Absolutely. I think in the long term, in other words, you're going to keep a gun forever. You know, what's $50, what's $70? To me, I see what you're saying. I'm with you on that. But to some people, it's not that way. To them, a gun is a tool. To them, a .22 rifle is a tool. Just like a pair of pliers, just like an outboard motor. And they want something that works, that's quality, that can stand the test of time, but's affordable. Okay, and here's a huge advantage of a Model 60, is that it doesn't need anything else. It doesn't need an external magazine, so you don't have any magazines to buy. It doesn't need triggers, although there is one aftermarket option for it, I'll mention briefly. Out of the box, it's pretty much a complete rifle. And I'll leave philosophy of use at that. How about SAWC design and ergos? I've hit some of that already. We'll start at the muzzle here. How about the sights? I think they've been better in years past. I think that front sight blade is a little bit coarse and it lacks contrast, and so I filed it off, as you can see, to create a silver front bead, and it has a buckhorn rear. Look at the close spacing I got going on there. That is a Weaver 2 to 7 by 28. I think they call it an RV7 22 scope. One of my all-time favorites. I love it, love it, love it. Have forever. I've reviewed it, recommend it. It's one of your best 22 options. I shouldn't say one of them. There's so many great 22 scopes out there, but back to the sight. So it's a good sight picture, not super precise. Jumping ahead to accessories, if you really want to kick your Model 60 up a notch, just like I talked about with the Marlin 795, put on the tech sights, because then it moves that rear sight blade all the way to the rear here, puts on a more precise interchangeable front post, and you talk about a beautiful sight picture, a precise sight picture. Tech sights. Tell them Nutnfancy sent you for your any Marlin you have. Well, not any, but definitely the Model 60. So sights are okay. They were more precise in the 80s, and you definitely had a longer sight radius with that previously longer barrel 18 round version. Whatevs though. I love the barrel on Marlins. This is probably a good point to talk about the quality issues that Marlin has had over the last few years. Here's what I'm talking about. So here's your magazine tube, changed to brass many decades ago. Very standard. So it locks in with your tab, right? And this is one of the things you learn by testing and reviewing a gun under pressure, more or less. We took this running and gunning. I think it was Black Army due to myself. Bad. Ran this gun. What I found out is this tube portion here is made of thinner metal, and this part was bending on me to the point where it would not retain the magazine tube. Easy enough to bend back, but in years past, this was a heavier gauge steel. That's what I'm talking about. It's an indication that somewhere along the way they said, hey, let's change that to a thinner stock, maybe save a few bucks in our mass production. So the good news is, in my research, a little bit that I've done, it sounds like the executives at Marlin, and actually the parent company, are getting it back on track, from what I've read. Time will tell, by the way, to get their quality levels back where they were, which were pretty much awesome. And you'll see some hits and you'll see some misses from most gun makers over the years, but I hope to see Marlin get solidly back on track. I will say, overall in quality, this particular Model 60, of which we have just one sample, is pretty excellent. The only ding on quality that I can say is just that, the magazine tube. So the bluing is adequate. Remember, this isn't an expensive 22. Let's see, 160-ish, I want to say. Maybe a little bit more for the laminated version. The stainless steel laminated, definitely more. Special editions will be more. Bluing's fine though. And we were talking about the barrel. The micro groove rifling of Marlin's works. I love it. Every gun that I've shot, I'm talking 22s, with micro groove, absurdly accurate. It's not unusual to see an accurate 22. How many times have I said that? It's everywhere. You see it. I get that, but I love the barrels. I also like the profile of the barrel. It's not skinny. There's no sleeves in it. It's 100% steel. So they haven't cheapened that part. The stock I've shown you already. We'll do another flyby. Just gorgeous. There's no checkering on it though. I really wish there was. If we keep this gun, I'm going to investigate whether we can do some cut checkering. But it is a laminated stock. I really don't know if you can do that on a laminated stock post-production without screwing up the finish. I just don't know. If I can do it, we're doing it. Beautiful stock though. Some models, coming back to the rear of the stock, have a rubber butt pad. I think the stainless steel laminated one does. Here I put some athletic tape on this butt pad because it slips around. You can see it has a raised cheek piece for scope, semi-pistol grip, great stock. The receiver is kind of has a pot metal feel to it. It's just lightweight aluminum, but you could say the same thing about this gun, right? The Ruger 1022, it's the same way. So it doesn't need to be made of steel. It'd be unnecessary weight. See the charging handle there? Cross bolt safety, positive. And that will take us to the trigger guard, which is polymer now. The magazine hold open, which is steel, this button here. And it doesn't have last shot hold open. Current models. Always like that when I can get it. Last shot hold open. How about that trigger? I'm talking about the pull. I don't know if I have my trigger scale up here. I bet you I don't. But I'll tell you what, in post-production, I'll put it right here of where it pulls. It's an okay trigger. It's not amazing. And this is where, and this is why I'm leaving it on the table, a lot of other 22s will kind of outshine the Model 60 in their versatility. For instance, if you don't like a trigger on a Ruger 1022, it's really easy to swap it out. And they have some great options. Heck, Ruger is even making an awesome trigger for this gun. This one's completely stock, by the way. Never changed it. But I put in Clark triggers, Volquartsen triggers. Now that Ruger's making one, it's a great way to improve it and make it more special for you, tailor it to the user. I like a lightweight trigger on a rifle, once again, for long range accuracy, for enjoyment, because it's just funner to shoot, and for rate of fire. And in this type of gun, rate of fire would be like plinking, just having fun. I'm probably showing you some of that footage in this video of just shooting fast with a Model 60. To have fun, test accuracy in that type of shooting, and also to test reliability. The thing with the Marlin trigger that's kind of weird is that it's not a self-contained modular unit. This bottom portion, which houses the trigger blade, interfaces with the bottom of the bolt assembly. Well, not the bolt, but the receiver assembly. Now, you can go get that DI Products trigger guard kit. It's about 65 or so. It's made of 6061 aluminum. It's a kind of a really high quality trigger. I have talked about it. I showed it, I believe, in the Ruger or in the Marlin 795 video. And it will remove pretty much all the pre-travel of the disconnector. Is it worth $65 for this cost of a gun? You decide. I kind of lean towards no, having tested it. Just deal with the stock trigger. It's not that bad. That's about all I got. Oh, I do have to mention this. Easily scopable, pretty standard, 3/8 inch dovetail on the top. This is where that aluminum receiver comes into play. And I've said this about my other 22 reviews. If you put on steel rings on a soft aluminum receiver, you can mar it up, you can ruin it. So be careful. If I have an aluminum receiver, I'm putting on aluminum rings. These are Burris aluminum rings, by the way. One of my all-time favorites. They're in gloss black, so they don't really match, but I don't really care. They're trim, lightweight, SAWC compliant. The cost was right. I think I bought them in 1995. Z rings or something like that. You can look them up. Burris rings. on the scope, it just makes a great addition. And look again how low the mounting is. I'm just barely clearing that rear sight, and yet I did not have to remove the rear sight, because as soon as you do remove that buckhorn sight, you know what's going to happen? You're going to lose that blade. And if you ever want to restore it to irons only, you'll be looking around for it and you won't find it. It's best to keep it on the gun. Real quick, field strip and maintenance. We're going to go into the manual for this one. That's not bad. The manual's okay. And this is going to be a flyby because I'm doing it. Here you go. Clean the action. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You kind of see how it's actually a pretty easy gun to take apart, work on. Any harder or, you know, easier than a 1022? If I had to decide one way or another, I would say a Ruger 1022 is maybe a little bit easier to work on. Maybe it's because I've done it more. Because I've been working on 1022s my whole life. This is not bad though. It's easy. Couple screws. I like how they have an Allen head screw here. Action screw. One in the back. Just easy. Easy peasy. And that will take us to the micro groove rifling and the accuracy that we got out of the Marlin 60. Let's start with this one. We actually bought this gun, I think, in 2011. You're finally getting a review. Here's shooting from 2012. 25 yards, one hole. This is all CCI mini mag. This is Tactical Doodle, the dude you saw at the beginning. My son. Oldest son. Basically one hole. With mini mag. Just superb accuracy. Lots of 22s can match that. Some can even exceed it. Here's 45 yards. This is 35 degrees in the desert. This is kind of in field testing. I like rolling these in. We have a mix of Federal and CCI. I think this Federal is just bulk, like the kinds you buy 550 rounds if you can find it. Last time I checked, that 22 availability is still a problem. I don't know what the problem is. How hard is it to make 22 ammo? Dang, son. Here's Ely match right here out of the Model 60. This is 50 yards. And I am shooting it with that 2x7 scope, if I remember. This group was not that great. I don't remember if that was sighting in or not. CCI, Federal gold medal. I think that's what it was. CCI, Ely. Again, this is 50 yards. Look at that group, 50 yards. Out of a $160 rifle, 22, that's pretty good. Look at this. We'll end with this one. 50-yard group, CCI mini mags, out of the Marlin 60. Now, I will testify that my buddy Sonny made some miraculous shots with his gun. We kind of traded off. I mean, we would have bragging, you know, about who made the best shot at the longest range. Sometimes it's just plinking, cans, this target, that target, army men, matchbox cars. Small game that we take home, cook, and eat. Marlin 60, dude. It's neck and neck with the 1022 for accuracy, no doubt. And I'm wrapping it up already. Hope you liked it. How about accessories? This is a good thing and a bad thing. I kind of mentioned it already. The Ruger 1022, extremely versatile, all kinds of accessories. Doodle and I were just saying that. This, there's not too much. Yeah, that trigger addition if you want. Here's one thing that I highly, highly recommend that you run with any tube-fed 22. I did not check to see if they're still available. The Speedy Loader. I think I have shown this on camera before. This is mandatory. So you just load your 22 rounds like this right there. Get them ready. When it's time to reload, you won't reload through the port of the tube, right? That's just one at a time. You're going to take your whole tube out, and in the video, you'll see us doing that. So you remove the loading tube. Don't lose it. I usually tuck it under my arm. Various techniques. I try to keep my fingers away from the barrel during loading, but the bolt's open. I'm doing the best I can. You know, maybe it crosses. Whatever. We'll make it. We'll be fine. And then you take this, line it up like so. Can you see inside there? And you just dump it. I didn't line it up properly. Like, there you go. And out they come. And you can charge the gun in about a second. Make sure you have the right orientation. That's on this one. It's for guns that will load basically like this one. So I'm loading tip down into the Speedy Loader. These were about at the time $20 or so a piece. You know, they're not lightweight to carry, but you're going to be carrying ammunition anyhow. Why don't you just carry this? You know, it's long. If it's got a clip, you can integrate it in a bunch of different systems. Mostly what I've used the Model 60 for is small game hunting and plinking. And Carrying this is not that big of a deal in those applications. Other accessories, you might put a butt pad on it, and that's about it. End of accessories. You're not going to rebarrel it. You're not going to put a larger capacity magazine on it. You might get a stock, but remember, look at things very carefully. If you're considering a gun that you really want to modify, that you might want to make it tactical, don't get a Model 60. That's not a gun. That's not its purpose. It is a traditional working man's gun, and it serves that purpose perfectly. Value, I think, is excellent even today. I mentioned about 160-ish. Might be a little bit less, might be a lot more depending on the variations, the collectability of it. And the highly collectible ones, if you go into an auction site or something, they're going to be more. But as far as portability, this thing has a very short overall length. That is an upside, like I mentioned. It went from 40.5 inches with an 18-round tube to a very portable 37.5 inches. No takedown capability like a takedown 1022. Most people won't care though. They'll go, I don't care. You know, it doesn't have sling swivels. You could mount those. There are kits, I think, from Uncle Mike's that will do that. You can mount it to the tube. I would just come in here, mount those if you want to sling it up. Carry it along, enjoy, take it boating with you, and take your kids out shooting. Take them out shooting. And I think the key of it is its historicness. Oh, man, I got to edit that out. I think the advantage of the Model 60 is its history. It's a proven 22 rifle in America. Hugely. A lot of love for the Model 60. A lot of nostalgia for the Marlin Model 60. I think that's why it keeps selling. Dads grew up on the rifle. They're going to buy one for their kids. Same can be said for the Ruger 1022. They are quintessential all-time Hall of Famers in TMP. Now I've got this in my playlist. Highly recommended. A great 22 rifle. See ya.